Here's to the women who won't settle, the badasses, the rebels, the ones who know they deserve more, those who know how to get their worth, those who refuse to settle for mediocre careers. You can hate them or you can love them, but the one thing you can't do is ignore them. Why? Because you admire them. Welcome to Her Career Talk. I'm your host, Olivia Jaras. Here you'll find the tools, inspiration, and advice to help you take back and stay in control of your career. You see, as a woman, you already have some incredible tools and skills that can be used to your advantage in the workplace. We're here to show you how to use those tools. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, ladies, today I have an incredibly special guest for us, and I'm not going to butcher it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to really say it the right way because she's talking to us from the Netherlands. This is Anne-Maartje Oud, right? Also known as Anne, and is a behavioral specialist. Now, you ladies know how we talk about all the time that it's about nonverbal communication as much as it is verbal, but it even goes beyond that. And Anne is here to talk to us about all of this and how it kind of, you can build a full circle when it comes down to your behavior, the behavior of others, your nonverbal communication, your verbal communication, like how to put it all together. She has over 15 years of experience, and she works with some of the world's best body language experts on her teams. She is part of this company called the Behaviour company, which is kind of self-explanatory. And they advise people all over the world on behavior and how to use behavior to get what you want, which is literally exactly what we're all about. But why not bring in the big guns? So Anne, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us.
Thank you so much for the introduction. And when we're already talking about behavior, Olivia, I love your behavior. You're so eccentric and you're happy. And this already means something for this conversation. What if you would have addressed this with a very serious face? It would have been a different conversation all over. So thank you for that lovely introduction. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I want to dive straight in because there's so much gold in this conversation that's about to happen. And I want to hear in your words exactly what it is that you do. Like, how do you navigate behavior? How do you help companies and people navigate behavior so that they can get what they want?
Yeah, it's a difficult topic, and yet it's very simple, as we say, because we all, at least now, I think we're all aware that it's not just about content. Of course, we have to have knowledge, but if you have knowledge and you cannot get it across, then we're failing. So luckily, more and more people are aware of the fact that it has to do with behavior, but how to do it? That's what everybody is wondering. How can we do this? So what we try to do in companies is make them aware of, I would say, personal behavior, sometimes team behavior. How do I come across? And is that way I'm coming across, is that effective for my goals? Is it helpful? All those kind of things. So I would say awareness and adaptation if they figure out that it's not always effective.
So how do you go about figuring out whether or not you need to adapt to your behavior? Like, for those of us who are not necessarily, because you work primarily with C-suite executives, companies all over the world to help leaders and employees achieve their goals by using behavior, right? But looking from the side of women, perhaps, how do you even start recognizing where there might be a disconnect between your behavior and your goals? I mean, I know it sounds really simple, but so often we get stuck in the forest, we can't see the trees.
Yeah, we get stuck in the forest, and that's one of the things is that sometimes it's related to seeing that it doesn't happen what you want to achieve. You're frustrated, like, why didn't I say that at the end of the conversation? Or when you drive home in your car, all of a sudden, oh, that's what I should have said. I would say it's the awareness most of the times. But it could also be that other people pick up on it and they will advise you, why didn't you do it like that? Or why did you say it like that? So I think most of the time it's zooming out one of the techniques I tell people is, how can you zoom out of your own, of your own forest, so to say. So you use the helicopter technique to figure out what is going on. Why did I fail on this? Or why am I not effective?
So I really want us to dive into these techniques, and like, I know you're going to give us like the recipe for all the ladies who are listening here. Like, how do you apply this in your own lives so that you can truly maximize your behavior in order to land your dream opportunities, if it's with your career, but perhaps even like how to negotiate or how to use your behavior to get what your kids want. Like, I have a bunch of questions lined up for you, but before we dive into it, I want the ladies to get to know you. Tell us, how the heck did you get into this? And what was your dream like? Where, because there's always, like, I find there's a juicy story as to why people do what they do, like why they choose to work in their genius zone. So can you tell us a little bit about?
Oh, it is a very funny story. So I don't know if it's a juicy story, but it's for me, it was intriguing as well. I did the Academy of Arts, which officially is the academy with expression through verbal and physical behavior. And in my last year, I was asked to give a workshop on presentation techniques, like how do you take the stage? And it was, I will never forget this, 12 gray men in 12 gray suits. And I was telling them about stage presence. And they were intrigued with the fact that nonverbal communication is something you can use if you have to present numbers. This was for a banking company at that point. And I was astounded because I thought, doesn't everybody know this? Doesn't everybody know that nonverbal communication is so important? But they didn't. And I remember it so well. There was a connection, like a click in my head. Maybe I should do something with this. Maybe I should use this and use my knowledge to help people. And in the beginning, it started with giving, presentations and coming across in a specific way. So that's when I decided not to go into the academy. I did finish the academy, but not go into acting or going into directing, those kind of things. But I chose the job as a consultant or trainer or advisor.
So what happened to those 12 men? Like, how did you see their reaction? Like, what made that click and the realization that, oh, I can use behavior?
I think because I showed them the effect. They were very focused on numbers and on content, and they had to present the numbers themselves. So it was kind of I wouldn't say role play, but kind of an interaction going on. And then I educated him on, okay, if you take the stage, if you make eye contact, all those kind of things. And we videotaped it. So the fact that they were able to see the difference on the communication, how different that was, that I think helped them mostly, that they were confronted, you could say, with their own behavior and the effect that the new behavior had.
Now, have you ever really struggled with your behavior in a situation? Like, what made you realize that? And like, I know that this is kind of what defined your career path, but there must have been an interest there from something, right? How did you have this realization yourself before turning it into a career path?
I think behavior has always intrigued me. It's how people interact with each other, and especially in the academy, where you learn to act as well, or to direct, because I'm a director. You learn I don't use that anymore, of course, but that's my background. That's my background. So, but actually, you, as a director, they teach you to really observe others. And if you want to get something across in a scene, sometimes you ask the actor, like, okay, you have to stand up straight, or it could be like external, it's like just the behavior part. But sometimes you have these deep conversations, like, what is this character thinking? And so it becomes more intrinsic. And those two elements always intrigued me. And then at one point I thought, maybe this is the same in real life, and you can use it in real life. Yeah, so not just on stage.
How effective have you found it to be in life?
For myself, or I would say it's hugely effective to observe and to realize the minute, especially women, but people in general, the minute you start realizing what you do and what the effect is, and the awareness that you can change it, then if to me, I feel make it grand, the whole world opens up to you. Because a lot of people that I work with start with the idea, no, this is just me. This is how I've sculpted myself through the years. I cannot change. But when we say, okay, that might be your thought or your belief, but there's a whole possibility there, and you start to help them with changing the behavior and sometimes change the thoughts, that is really helpful. So I would say very effective.
So important. Like you're speaking to my heart directly, because this is literally what we talk about in the inner circle and with our ladies all the time, is that if you understand how you come across, you can take back control of your professional brand so that you influence behavior and you get people to see you in the light that you want them to see you. Yes. Right?
Well, preferably in a way that really is genuine with your base, as we say. Sometimes we see people like, oh, I figured it out. I'm going to change my behavior so that I come across in a different way. And then it's so fake that we see through that as well. But if you have the genuine thought, oh, I want to become this person, I have this dream, or I have this belief, or I have this career idea, as you beautifully help women with, then that's a path you can take. And the awareness is step one, but it's the most important step.
Now, the one thing, though, that I do find that women tend to struggle with, and I don't know if men in particular struggle with it, my gut tells me that they don't, is with overcoming that fear that they are worth coming across, that they're capable of, say, like, for example, a very, very kind of basic example is like, you know, when a woman comes in, she's like, I want this dream job, but I don't necessarily believe that I'm worthy of it. How can I overcome that barrier of, okay, I need to start acting the role so that I can get it? How to start persuading with my behavior so that I can get myself into proximity of that opportunity. How?
If I may address the other part first, because I coach both men and women, it is the same. They just show it in a different way. I've been astounded. I didn't know this in the beginning, that a lot of guys, that's always why I try to talk about people and not always make a difference between men and women, because you see they have the same hesitations sometimes, or the same insecurities. It's like we're humans, and women as well. Sometimes the other day somebody said, oh, you act so muscular. And I was like, what do you mean by that? I feel like a woman, but it's also like, how do we view this behavior? So you could say, you could think it's like men or women, but I always like to look just at the behavior part. So having said that, then you can always figure out, okay, what is behind my thought and how do I show this? So for instance, with your question, if women want a specific job, but they don't feel worthy of it, as you said, then it's always intriguing to figure out why that is the case. Is it because of the knowledge? Is it because of the company? Is it because of the experience they ask? So what I always try to do is figure out, what is it exactly? Else it becomes a very big concept, but we try to minimize it to what is the essential thing that keeps you away from your goal, keeps you away from your career. And then it becomes much more simpler to solve it. Because if you think, I'm not worthy of this job, that is a huge thought. If you try to figure out what it is, if it's knowledge, well, maybe you start studying a bit more. If you feel intimidated by your colleagues, how can you work on that? So then you can really focus on what kind of behavior do you want to change or add to go there. Yeah. So
I have found, though, that oftentimes when women try to be like all super empowered and assertive and direct, right? And you and I have talked a little bit about this before in another conversation, is that sometimes they end up coming across as aggressive. And that's kind of like a social standard. Like as women, how do we delicately shift this balance so that we don't come across as too assertive or aggressive when advocating for ourselves, when shifting our behavior to drive towards what we want?
Let me start by an example, because I did it myself in the beginning of my career. I started in the automotive industry, and I remember that I felt intimidated in a certain training session, and I felt very small, and it was really awful. So the next day I was like, because it was a multiple day training session, I'm like, okay, this is not going to happen. I'm going to be this person. I'm going to stand there and I will not have it, which was aggressive and totally ineffective. But what it taught me is that there's this balance, that if you stay true to what you think and what you believe, and you show that in a balanced way, then you don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to overdo it, so to say. And I think we always know when we do this. You can hear it if we talk about nonverbals. You can see it in the body. People, they kind of puff up, so to say. You can hear it in the voice. So they start talking louder, or those kind of things. And if you become aware of this, again, what is the effect? Oh, this could be aggressive behavior. If we stare directly for too long, maybe we become aggressive. So if you say we want to make that smaller, we want to make it more balanced, we can look at those things. What does it make? What does happen? How does it become aggressive? What do you do? And again, if you're alert and if you're aware, oops, I was shouting almost instead of just, talking in a normal voice. If women understand those kind of things, and men the same thing, then it's really important. Then you can change that.
It totally redefines how you come across when you take back control. Now, I'm hearing you say that, for lack of like a better term, when you chunk things down, you can take back control of behavior. Can we talk a little bit about that? Like how do you take back control? And specifically for the ladies, there's a couple of men who listen to this podcast too, but for the most part, it's all ladies. How do we take back control of our behavior?
Yeah.
And all of the different rounds, right? Because like you're saying, there's verbal, there's nonverbal, there's environmental awareness, like being in tune with what's happening around you. And how do you suggest that we take back control?
I love the word control, because sometimes we feel like we're not in control, and that's when we are in trouble, so to say. It would be fantastic if you realize that how do you feel and what do you do when you are relaxed and at ease. And I don't mean laying on the couch in a Netflix moment, but we have these moments in our jobs where we feel focused, where we feel, as you would say, in control. We're like, this is who I want to be. This is the person I
want to be more of this. Yeah.
I want to be more of this. Now, if you are able to analyze yourself at that moment, or maybe even when you're driving home in your car, or these days when your Zoom session is over, analyze it. To analyze yourself and your behavior is helpful, because in those moments when there's discomfort, when we're like, this is going out of control, we see the difference in our behavior. If you're observant, you can see the difference. Oh, this is my normal behavior when I'm comfortable. This is my behavior when I'm not comfortable. And then you're in control already, because then you can try to shift towards you being comfortable, just maybe by adapting your behavior. And it doesn't always feel that you're in control, but you can start from, as we say, the outside. That's one idea. And the other idea is you can start from the inside. The minute you feel out of control, usually people tell themselves all these sentences like, oh, this is not okay, or am I failing? And if you pick up on that and you can kind of reprogram those thoughts, that is also helpful. And usually when we do that, we also see that we start to become more in control again.
Hey there, I just wanted to invite you really quick to check out our upcoming Her LinkedIn Challenge. Seriously, these challenges are taking the world of working women by storm. Because even during these crazy times, women, just like you and I, during these challenges are learning to trip up the LinkedIn algorithm so that they can begin attracting massive opportunities, getting $20,000 raises, and even going from unemployed to dream employed. Heck, we even have LinkedIn employees taking this challenge on repeat so they at LinkedIn can learn from our challenge. Check it out, herchallenge.com. And sorry, boys, this is only for the ladies.
Now, with pushback, because there's on one end, there's what we're talking about, which is like taking back control, even if it's like in tiny instances, which obviously build the momentum so that we feel broadly in control. But then there's pushback, right? When you say, for example, decide, I'm going to start dressing up like the CEO of my career. And that's going to mean some look changes, some stylist, like a very external approach. And I'm using this as a very graphic example because it's a very stark contrast to where you were before, perhaps, and then where you want to go with your behavior. How do you not cave when you get environmental pushback, right? When your spouse says like, oh, why are you all dressed up? Or when people around you, and granted during these chaotic times, like everybody's like dressed from the top up and wearing tights bottom down, right? But when it comes down to the external world and you're trying to showcase yourself, you've raised your standards of how you position yourself, how do you deal with that pushback and not internalize it as I'm just going to go back to my comfort zone, which was not acting or dressing like the CEO of my career, and overcome that obstacle? Because it's a big one. I find that sets a lot of women back.
It is a big one. And it's also how big is your intrinsic motivation on doing this? This is what I try to help people with, like, how big do you make how big do you make the pushback, as you would say? How important is that to you? And if that is still so important, there's something you have to work on inside. Because I love this. There's a sentence I love, which is in a very old movie. It's called Labyrinth. I don't know if you know it, with David Bowie. Well, it's irrelevant. But anyway, at one point, she realizes that he has been pushing her all over the place and everything. And she says this sentence, which is applicable for a lot of people. Like, she's almost shocked because of the realization. And she says, "You have no power over me." And with that, literally everything collapses and she becomes stronger. It's a metaphor, but I love that thought, because if you give somebody the power to overwhelm you, even with a look or a thought, like, why are you dressed up that way? And you allow them to the power. It's, yeah. And if you can say, okay, that's okay. They are allowed to have opinions. I mean, if they don't like the way that you dress, that's okay. But it doesn't mean that you have to fully adapt towards their needs or their beliefs. It's what you like and what you prefer. And always when we go out of the comfort zone, I always say it's a test. When something happens like that, it's great if somebody says, "Why are you dressed like that?" And then it's the moment, do you own up to this? Or not only dressing, but also in meetings. You see this in meetings a lot, when people start talking, or when they own up to it, or when they start to say, "I have something to contribute to this meeting." People are shocked. Why are you talking all of a sudden? You were always silent. And then instead of diminishing yourself, actually seeing it like, yay, they are noticing. This is fantastic. They see me now. So you can actually see it as I'm on the right path moment when people give you negative comments, you could say. It's trying to flip it around.
So like internally, right, you're telling yourself like, yes, this is working, right? Because of your reaction that you're receiving.
Yeah.
But externally, how do you like that next step, right? You've spoken up in a meeting, you say like, hey, actually I have something to say. And someone like just retaliates, for example, and says, what? You never speak. Why are you talking? How do you own up to it with your behavior and your words?
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you not come across as combative and instead just rise up to the occasion, right? Step up on deck and own it, right?
Yeah. I think it also depends on your style. Like, who are you and what are you trying to create, or who do you want to be? So some people use humor, like, oh, guys, or girls or people, you finally noticed me. Great, thank you, with a big smile on your face. Or, yes, I thought the new information needed to be heard, so I made a vow to myself to start speaking up. Sometimes you can use that. Sometimes,
it's humor, yeah.
Yeah, humor. Sometimes you don't say anything because it's irrelevant. It's like, yeah. So you just be silent, and it's kind of a blank canvas, maybe.
By doing that blank canvas, like you make them come across as total jerks.
Yeah, it's not bad. And in a way, it's also intriguing because it is new behavior. So you can even say, yeah, I surprised myself, or to not see it as an attack, then it's not an attack, which sounds easier than done. I mean, I've had lots of settings where I felt like, okay, I have to stay calm now. Those kind of things.
Not get triggered. Yeah. So you were, which one's the third step? Sorry, I cut you off at the blank slate.
Yeah, the humor, the blank canvas, but also if they give you feedback, you can learn from that. So if they say, whoa, why are you speaking all of a sudden? You can literally use that moment to ask if it was the right way. Because maybe you came across in a not effective way. So you can say, oh, is there something that I could have done differently? Is there some feedback in there? And if you have the courage, you can even say, to ask that in a very neutral way, not in an attack way, like, oh, is there any feedback for me? Because then we go to this attack.
Because it could come across as that. Like, how would you neutralize that? How do you neutralize it?
I think this also has to do with what is said on the other hand, on the other side, but also how you ask the question. So if you raise your voice, it's a genuine question. I'll try to do this because it's if you say, so is there feedback for me? Then we go down on how I should do this. Then that's not a real nice open question. But if you say, oh, is there feedback for me? So on how to change this. It could be a bit more.
The intonation. Yes.
Yeah.
Like how you end that question. Oh, is there feedback for me? Would be very sarcastic. Oh, is there feedback on how I should do this next time? Like, and you end up up.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Totally different. Right.
Yeah.
But there's a gut instinct there that we want to react negatively. Is there any benefit really to reacting negatively towards the intrigue of your change in behavior? Should we be shying away? Like, is there a problem with you ending in a low intonation and kind of throwing it back out there? Like,
it's not a problem at all, unless it's a problem. And that sounds a bit weird, but I am always a firm believer you can do anything. Please try to figure out all the different behaviors, all the different intonations, all the different outfits, everything. Try it out. But be very alert on what is the effect. And is that effect what I want? Yes, because sometimes we see people try different behaviors and then they blame others for not picking up on it. Yeah, you should acknowledge me in this meeting because I'm speaking up right now. But the way they speak up is still not effective. So we always say, yes, you're speaking up, but you're doing it in a way that you just interrupting people the whole time, or your sentences are very long, so everybody's still distracted and not listening to you. So there's still this alertness that you have to have. And then it's okay if you want to respond in a specific way, but always be aware, where does it come from? Is it because you're a bit sad that like, oh, now I tried new behavior and then they're still not picking up on it?
Work, right? Because you're like mad at yourself that it didn't quite work.
Yeah. And that's usually why mostly we're mad at ourselves, like, oh, I failed. That's why feedback is so difficult, because we want to achieve things. We want to become better. Yeah.
Do you have any tips or secrets on how do you keep yourself from reacting in the moment and seeing this as like a neutral situation?
Yes, definitely. And I would like to add that I hope people will not stop themselves from reacting, because it's actually very helpful, but maybe react in a way that is helpful for you. So that's what I said before about the helicopter technique. If you see or hear something and you want to respond to it, have this tiny, even if it's a second, like, is this what I want to do right now? And then you can check with yourself, is this because I'm hurt, or is it because I'm angry, or is it because I don't know anything about the situation? What I would like to say or advise people is just verbalize what is going on. And this has to do with vulnerability. And a lot of people don't dare to do this. But if you can just sometimes say, oh, I'm a bit shocked on how you react now, or, oh, I'm not quite sure if I know that answer. That is so powerful. And not diminishing yourself, but in a way that comes across, as you would say, in control. But address things, but from chosen behavior instead of impulsiveness.
But stopping the impulsive, like, because the impulse generally happens, like, how do you get to that point where you can take internal stock of why you're going to react the way you react? Like, do you have any secret on how you stop yourself from reacting?
How do I do that? I think it's because I've tried so many things, and I've learned that I always try to look at specific situations. So what is effective for this situation? And it's not like I'm controlling myself. I hope I come across as genuine, and I hope I'm me, but it's always a kind of a delay. And for me, it helps to kind of overview the setting, like, okay, what's going on, and where are we now, and who am I, and who's this other person? And one of the things that helps me is the comfort-discomfort paradigm, which means that I have to feel comfortable in a setting, but you as well. And the minute I start to feel uncomfortable and I see you are very comfortable, I have to be alert, like, oh, maybe I should change something in this setting because I feel uncomfortable. But also the other way around. If I see you are uncomfortable and I'm very comfortable, maybe I was a bit too aggressive, those kind of things. So that helps.
Influence. Yeah. Now, taking this outside of the work context, how do you use your behavior to get your kids and your partners and spouses to do what you want? How do you roll the household? How do we
to influence them again, knowing what you want, because a lot of people start by not knowing what they want, and then it's all over the place. Do they want to have a nice dinner with everybody at the table, or do they want everybody to be doing their own thing and being quiet? So I would say starting to know what you want is a very good step. And then find out what is comfortable for those other people. How do you influence them? And also yourself. Like, if you are aware of, every time I say this or do this, that is intriguing because then it's working. You might pick up on that. You might have a mental note like, oh, this works. For instance, with kids, everybody knows this, but if you force kids to do something, that's not always helpful. If you take the time,
but we should try.
Yes, but it's hard.
Trying to force them to eat the broccoli and like do your homework.
Yeah, But if you can have a conversation, and I must say, I'm not a parent, so I will not be able to really speak about parenthood because I've never experienced that. But I do see what helps is if you talk with your children about specific goals or specific positive effects on it. And if you really have a genuine, true conversation, instead of eat the broccoli, but you take the time, and I've seen this happening, like people who made, this is taking time, but who made dinners in a very, like the broccoli became a person in the story. And, you know, they have all these things they can do to help children eat broccoli. But let me rephrase that because I'm not good at, it's not my expertise on childhood. But what I do see is if you start really focusing on the other person and not forcing, like, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. If you show above and opposed behavior, the automatic response will be opposed behavior. You can see this in Leary's Rose, which is a theory that is really helpful. And the minute we start, Leary's Rose, Timothy Leary, he came up with this fantastic model, which is super simple and everybody understands it the minute you see it. And one of the elements in there is if we show opposed behavior, you will get opposed behavior back. So if I'm just focusing on my needs, people will retaliate. Mm-hmm. So if I go to what do we want, either in a home or in a business setting, what do we want? How can we make this happen? What can we do to have a nice meal instead of this is how I want it? And that's what a lot of people do. They become very focused. Yeah.
If you make it about them, the conversation changes and their willingness to do what you're asking them to do. Yeah. I need to make a mental note and actually act on this. Like, I know this, but I need to act on it personally. Yeah. And I think it's not just me who struggles with, like, walking the talk when it comes to putting yourself in the mind of others and understanding what they want so you can influence their behavior.
At the same time, not forget yourself. Because this is what happens a lot. When we start caring for others, and especially women tend to do this, we focus on the other person fully, and then we forgot ourselves in this setting.
That is sheer gold. We forget ourselves. That is so true. Now, Anne, we have to wrap it up, but I want to have you back in here because this was such an intriguing conversation. Like, I have no idea where time went. This is ridiculous, but this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, really quickly, if the ladies want to look you up and find more information, how can they connect with you? Where do they go? What do they do?
Well, they can go online. I am online at thebehaviorcompany.eu because we're in Europe. So that would be the English spelling way, but maybe we can find it somewhere. Or I'm on Twitter or LinkedIn, and they can always send you an email if they have questions or something. That would be really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have, out of curiosity, do you have like a book on the pipeline? Because this is just
I do.
Such important.
Thank you so much. Well, I am creating a book on how people can change their behavior, on acknowledging how they come across and all those kind of things. And recently 2 articles have been published. One of them could be very intriguing about this zooming out. It's called the helicopter technique. So it's an article that's on Psychology Today, and it helps people to zoom out of a conversation. Like, what can I do? When sometimes we're stuck in a conversation, and these techniques helps you to actually get it going and get unstuck. Like, what shall I do? And then the metaphor can be helpful.
So can we just Google Psychology Today, the helicopter technique?
Yeah, definitely.
And that will show your article? That's awesome.
Yeah, well, and it's written with Joe Navarro, a former FBI agent. So it would be, if you can combine it with his name as well, then you definitely will find it.
That's amazing. Yes, Joe is incredible. But this is so fantastic. We've pieced together all the behavior that goes into getting what you want. And this is something that it's just so important because we think, like, sometimes we just knock our head against a wall trying to get what we want and it's not working. And we go crazy trying the same approach over and over again. But if you take that kind of helicopter approach, like the eagle's eye view, and you take a minute to understand what you're trying to do or what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes. And
That's
then
awesome.
see what kind of tiny thing you have to change.
Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies, I sure as heck you enjoyed this as much as I did, because this was just, I don't really know where the time went by. So until next time, ladies, this was Anne-Maartje Oud. Did I do it right?
Fantastic.
All right, that is it for this episode. And if you're ready to take things to the next level, I invite you to check out our free salary coaching Inner Circle Facebook group on, well, of course, Facebook. You just go ahead and search for Salary Coaching Inner Circle on your Facebook search bar, and it will surely show up. You'll get live access to me, the opportunity to engage with our super powerful guest speakers, and you'll get the support of hundreds of career-oriented, like-minded women just like you. So check it out, and also be sure to catch out next episode with more ways